Hey, obviously, just kind of recapping yesterday for us. Exciting time for Ole Miss and for our community, but more importantly for our players. Thought we did what we needed to do to win the game. That was kind of the message to the players was you're playing for an opportunity to play again. I thought for the most part, especially offensively, we executed really well. Some things obviously we got to clean up from a defensive standpoint with some explosives tackling on the perimeter, but thought the energy was good. I thought the attitude was good, and they played well enough to win the game.
We'll take questions.
Allison Mastrangelo, Channel 2 in Atlanta. Thanks for doing this. Um, Obviously, this time around, you will be facing Georgia in a different role. What did you see from them last time, and what do you feel like will be different just on your end getting ready to face them in the playoffs?
Well, hopefully we can get them to at least punt one time. That'd be a good start. So no, I mean, extremely talented football team, very well coached, kind of the premier college football team in my opinion, and have been for some time. So, they do a really good job on offense, using multiple formations, creating extra gaps. Do a good job really running the football. The run sets up their play action, and then I think the quarterback who's got experience is playing at a really high level. Is very accurate, makes really good decisions. So. Well, to have a chance, you got to be able to stop the run, which is easier said than done. We got to be really smart in the back end and play to our help and leverage and change that picture for them. And you got to create some turnovers and some takeaways within the game to get the offense back on. And then, offensively, I think we had some success early. Obviously, we're really talented on the perimeter, I think. I think our quarterback's playing at a high level, but you're going to have to be able to run the football effectively versus them, especially when you have to. And I think that's the biggest thing. They've been in a lot of big games, and Kirby does an unbelievable job. They don't panic. It's something that you're going to have to close out the game in the fourth quarter, just like we didn't do last time. So, got to play really sound, regardless of who you play at this point. You got to execute, and you got to take care of the football on offense. We got to take it away on defense.
Pete, we saw that Archie Manning spoke to the team on Friday, and then Eli kind of embraced you when you walked onto the field on Saturday. What's it been like having the Manning family around the Ole Miss football program these past few days?
Oh, it's been awesome. Obviously, they're a big part of Ole Miss history and the legacy that they've created for themselves while they were here. There was a previous relationship, prior to this from the recruitment of Arch as well. They got to know a lot of those guys. Not really Eli in that because obviously he was up in New York, but him coming back, I think regardless who was going to be in this seat, Eli was probably going to be at the first playoff game at his alma mater. But having Archie back and talking to the team and the message that he said to him on Friday, I think had a huge impact for our players. And, our guys driving around campus, they see that 18 sign for them to be able to stand up in front of them and present the message he did was pretty awesome.
What's the schedule for you guys this week in terms of staff, where they're going to be, when do the players come back, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so obviously we went through the game. We cleaned the game up last night, went through the corrections, all that stuff. Moved on to Georgia this morning in a walkthrough format. We're going to give them a couple of days off here for Christmas, and then we're going to bring them back Christmas night and go to work as a normal Monday would be on the 26th. So no different than when we first prepared, that week before that we got into it for Tulane in that bye week. Obviously, we got coaches that have other jobs, like a lot of teams do right now. That they're working two different jobs. So when it's not game week, they're gonna be working the role of their other job, and then when it becomes game week, they're fully invested where they're at. So it's no different than anywhere else.
I was wondering if you had any kind of an early update on health with Kiwan and maybe Odom and some of the other guys that went out on Saturday.
We're still working through that right now, but obviously several of those guys came back in the game after the injury occurred, so I'm not feeling any issues on those, but we're still working through some of the other ones.
Coach, how different does it just feel for you? I mean, at the beginning of the year, you're a coordinator, and now you're just your second game in, and you're getting ready to be coaching in the playoffs. I mean, could you have really ever imagined kind of a scenario like this?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I don't look from a game standpoint of the coaching piece, especially still calling the defense. The preparation piece of it and your normal routines pretty consistent. The difference obviously controlling the schedule, especially when you're going to two different sites, practicing here and going 3 days prior. So some of the management of those things, and then throw Christmas on top of it and the travel component and some of those things that you were just worried about one side of the ball now that you got a lot more problems to be able to help. But we got a really good crew around us, guys that do a really good job. So the ball part of it's easy. I mean, I don't think whether it's the Sugar Bowl, whether it's the first round, or whether you're playing Mississippi State, once you get late in the season, if you lose, you're probably not going to the playoffs, right? And right now, if you lose, your season's ended. So that piece of it, we've been fortunate to be in a lot of these, and we got to play really well and focus on the right things and our preparation and how we practice and all those things. And if we let Christmas get in the way and we let hotel rooms and tickets and all that and all that outside noise, then we're probably not going to win the game anyway. So we're going to give them some time off, let them get away from it, which I think is really important. I think the mental component of it right now is just as, as important as the physical component at this time of the year. It's been a long season, so I want them to get away from it for a couple of days and then come back and get ready to go.
Hey,
Coach,
Pete,
I know,
sorry, go ahead.
Coach, I know going through the season, you kind of, switch directions and focus on going to the next opponent. But off the top of your head, what are some of the maybe foundational pieces that you remember from the Georgia game that you kind of already ready to implement to prepare for the Sugar Bowl this time around?
I mean, you got to get them behind the sticks, on early downs from a defensive standpoint. You can't just bleed the entire time. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, and you never get them off course. They have their whole playbook, regardless of the down and distance. You got to create some third and longs, and when you create third and long, you got to get off the field. There was a critical one, two of them really in the first game. The 3rd and 8 in the low red zone, that we have a coverage bust and they score instead of holding them to a field goal. And then the very next drive, we get them 3rd and 7 backed up, and we're bringing a corner pressure. The corner doesn't come, and they run zone right into it and get a first down. So when you do get them behind, you get to 3rd down, you got to get off the field. And then there's going to be some 50-50 balls that you're going to have to contest. And I think that's the biggest thing versus these guys is you got to contest every play. We can't give them free things, whether it's a lack of communication, whether it's a missed tackle. In that first team, the first time we played them, we had double-digit missed tackles on defense. So when you're playing an elite team with elite players that's really well coached, you can't give them things. They're going to get enough on their own because at some spots they might like the matchup better than we do. So you got to be on the same page. Communication's got to be very well, very good. They do a good job, formation and motions and shifts with alternative formations to really make you communicate, to try to have the chalk last. But I think more importantly is not giving up explosive plays, contesting them, right? They're going to have some, but they got to be contested plays, and then tackling really well on the perimeter. I think it's going to be extremely important. And then on offense, controlling drives, still being explosive through the pass game like we were in the first game. But, when we got to convert that first down, we got to be able to execute and take care of the football.
Coach, Patrick Carter posted earlier today that this was his first playoff victory as interim wide receiver coach. Have you had to, because of the dual jobs that you mentioned earlier, had to adjust some roles or duties to analyst because some guys are bouncing back and forth between the different plays?
No, I mean, I think, the first Sunday when all this went down, the next guy that was in the room said, hey, when those guys aren't here, you take this like this is your room. All right, those players are going to be looking for you. They're going to need direction, right? It's a good opportunity for a lot of young guys from an interview standpoint. You run it like you would run it if you were to run a room when they're not here. And then when they're here, it's their room, and it's the same role that you were doing prior for the 2025 season. So that's no different at a lot of them. That's done the same way everywhere.
You talked about the assistants that will not be here next year, kind of managing the time game week versus the time before game week. How much is that true for you too, in terms of you're planning ahead for 26 and filling out a staff and figuring all that out now versus prepping for a game and getting ready for that next playoff game?
Yeah, I think, everybody in the country is having to do that. I mean, you're going through the retention of your own roster, which you're not going to know until January 2nd. And then, what pieces are graduating or going to declare early for the draft that you're going to need to replace, with a guy that you see be able to make an impact immediately, and having those guys ready to roll for when the portal opens. The visit's going to have to happen pretty quick. The turnover is pretty quick, and having a plan in place. So that doesn't matter if you had coaching turnover or not. Every school in the country is having to do that, manage that. That's always been the case at this point. So it's nothing out of the norm.